It's a crazy world, crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you.
All right, guys, I'm the guy in that video right there, Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's September 10th, 2024. That's right. It is debate night here in America. Prepare to get stupider. We'll have a whole preview of that. And I should note that we will be live after the debate. We're going to do it. There will probably be some pizza involved. There will be some tequila involved, maybe some other stuff. We'll find out. But live show immediately after the debate. The debate is at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour and a half, if I'm not mistaken. So that should be around 10:30. We'll start. And we'll go against all the usual suspects. And looking forward to seeing you there. And during the debate, if you want to chat with us live, I will be in the Locals chat. So you can download the app. The Locals app, absolutely free, and join us, rubinreport.locals.com. Post-game show, as always, on Locals, and we're streaming on Locals right now, as well as YouTube and Rumble. The show today really is a preview of what we're going to see tonight, because it's a particularly weird debate, just relative to what's going on in the world right now and how wacky things have been over the last couple of months. Let's not forget the assassination attempt. There was that whole coup of the sitting president, the sort of coronation of a woman that nobody really likes, the media running the crazy narrative that everybody loves her, the polls, which now are really showing Trump with a bigger lead, and the fact that this does feel like, they always say it, they always say the same damn thing. I try not to do it. Someone could go back into the 12 years I've been doing this show, how many times I said this is the most important election ever. But this kind of is, right? It really feels like we are right on that precipice of taking our 250 some odd year history of being a nation that was a republic, a democratic republic that believed in capitalism and freedom and individual rights, and really teetering off into something much worse, teetering off into the type of place that most of our ancestors fled from to come here, the type of communist, Marxist, authoritarian regimes that all of our grandparents, great-grandparents, whatever it is, left, whether they came legally or illegally in some cases, but came here, built a better life for themselves, and we seem to be sort of falling back into that place. So yes, it is the orange man versus the cackling lunatic, and let's just dive right into it, because there's a whole bunch, because it's not just about the two of them, it's about these massive issues that we are dealing with as it relates to free speech and the border and the economy and everything else. And the choice just could not be more stark. That's really where we're at. So I want to start with the video of Elon Musk, because yesterday they were doing the All In Summit. The All In podcast is, they got a couple of the big time tech bros. You guys know David Sachs from this show. And they do a show where they talk about politics, but mostly tech and investing and all of that stuff and all the cultural things. And they had a huge live event, and they had Elon Musk as a surprise guest. And they asked him a bit about free speech, and clearly that is going to come up tonight.
How are the freedom of speech wars going? This is you've been at war for 2 years now.
Yes.
The price of freedom of speech is not cheap, is it?
I think it's like 44 billion, something like that.
Just
Round numbers.
give or take a billion.
Yeah, round numbers. Yeah. It's pretty nutty. There is like this weird movement to quell free speech kind of around the world, and this is something we should be very concerned about. You have to ask, like, why was the First Amendment like a high priority? It was like number one. Is because people came from countries where if you spoke freely, you would be imprisoned or killed. And they were like, well, we'd like to not have that here, because that was terrible.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a lot of places in the world right now, if you're critical of the government, you get imprisoned or killed.
Right.
Yeah, we'd like to not have that.
And are you concerned?
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I mean, I suspect this is a receptive audience to that message.
Yeah.
So at the end there, when he says, I suspect this is a receptive audience to that message, most of those guys on that show are liberals or Democrats. Sachs would be the one exception to that. But that means that the audience, generally in a normal world, would have largely leaned left. But we now know that free speech has become more of a conservative position, let's say. That's really unfortunate, because it used to be the liberals of the 60s and 70s, the ACLU, who were fighting for neo-Nazis to be able to march in Skokie, Illinois, whether you like their speech or not. But that's the whole point of free speech. That's the point of the First Amendment and everything else. But as I always say, when you listen to Elon and when you listen to most people who are telling the truth, they don't have to scream a lot. They don't have to genuflect and bang their hands on the table. It's just like, oh, here is what I feel about things. And think about, I mean, he just said what I preface this all with about where our ancestors came from and why they fled here and everything else. And yet we now know, especially in a post-COVID world, that the government has been colluding with big tech companies to silence people and shadow ban people and all of those things. So how is that relevant to what we are going to see tonight? Well, first off, you've got one guy, Donald Trump, who has kicked off all of the big tech platforms, and it's only in the last year he's been allowed back on most of them. But they also blew up Parler, which they blamed for January 6th and everything else. And Kamala is on the other side of that. She is part of the current administration, and we know that the current administration worked with Facebook and other groups to silence people during COVID, including me. There is congressional testimony about that. Here is Kamala Harris. There's two videos here. The second one we showed you yesterday, but we're going to start with Kamala Harris talking to Jake Tapper in 2019 about how Twitter should remove Trump from their platform. This is before January 6th, and then there's a second video that we did show yesterday with the same, I would say, rather ridiculous, evil, authoritarian notion. Go.
I guess the question about you I know you wrote to Twitter and the CEO, Jack Dorsey, and asked him to take away the president's Twitter handle, his account. How is that not a violation of free speech? I mean, the president has the same rights that you have, that I have, and how would that not just be a slippery slope where they have to ban, half of the people on Twitter?
I've heard that argument, but here's the thing, Jake. First of all, a corporation, which is what Twitter is, it does not have it has obligations, and in this case, Twitter has terms of use policy. And their terms of use dictate who receives the privilege of speaking on that platform and who does not. And Donald Trump has clearly violated the terms of use, and there should be a consequence for that.
And will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms, because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy.
It's so interesting to me how they only see the hate one way. So Kamala Harris does not care about the constant threat of hate that, say, I get, right? I open up Twitter, by the way. Elon has Twitter. And guess what? People say mean things to me. It's okay. I don't have to look at it all the time. I did take a month off it, right? And they say mean things on all the things. But she doesn't mean, oh, the lefties, the socialists, the Marxists, the Hamas lunatics, the progressive whack jobs who are saying all sorts of horrible things to people on the right. What she means is anyone who's criticizing the Democrats. That's what she means. And what is their answer for all problems? It is using the giant hammer of the government to crush companies, to force them to do whatever they want, et cetera. In the first clip where she's talking to Tapper, note she says that Donald Trump should be kicked off of Twitter because he's violating their terms of service. But if you watch the extended clip, she never says what those violations are, because he didn't violate the terms of service to Twitter. If you were concerned about misinformation, well, first off, you'd have to ban Jake Tapper and Kamala Harris because they lied about Jussie Smollett and they lied about very fine people on both sides and the gajillion, roughly, lies that they put out there about COVID. So this has nothing to do with lies. This has nothing to do with misinformation. This has nothing to do with radicalism. If you were concerned about radicalism, well, Kamala, you would be trying to get all the Antifa accounts banned off all the big tech companies, but you actually raise money for those kids after they burn down buildings. So that's kind of where we are at this point. But I want to go from free speech to where the mainstream media is at with all of this, because from the last 2 years, I've been talking about this wide tent thing. You guys know that. And more people are waking up. And as more and more people wake up, and they also tune out of CNN and MSNBC and everything else, well, then it becomes a little bit harder for those places to lie, because they have to have they need like some veneer of truth. Otherwise, everyone will be like, boy, they just absolutely lie about everything. So there is some mainstream media exposure of the radicalism of Kamala Harris happening in the last couple of days. I don't want to give credit where credit is due. But first, let's talk about preserved gold. Guys, we're living in unpredictable times with digital currencies on the rise, a whopping $35 trillion in national debt, and inflation still at a 40-year high. For these reasons and more, the big short traders, known for their successful bet against the housing market back in 2008, are warning that Americans don't have enough gold in their portfolios. Their advice comes amid massive central bank gold buying taking place globally and spiraling $35 trillion national debt lingering across the U.S. That's why you should consider physical gold and silver to protect your retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks. Preserve Gold is giving away a no-cost, no-obligation free wealth protection guide that contains 25-plus pages of detailed information and insights. Learn how you can put physical gold and silver into an IRA or 401k and even purchase precious metals for delivery directly to your home. All you need to do is text the word DAVE to 50505. Preserve Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews and millions of dollars in trusted transactions with satisfied clients. As an exclusive offer for my viewers, in addition to the free guide, you can also get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. Just text DAVE to 50505 to receive this exclusive offer. And now back to me. Okay, so because the debate is tonight, and CNN and MSNBC and some of these other places, they can't lie all the time about everything. They can lie about an awful lot, right? What do I always say about them? They don't have to tell us the truth, right? And a lot of people would just swallow it, but they can't be just abjectly horrible every single day. So sometimes some truth actually works its way onto these networks. So CNN's Erin Burnett last night was reporting on Kamala Harris's radical positions, which the media doesn't want you to see right now, but even CNN occasionally has to do something roughly honest.
So in 2019, in what K-File found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE." Well, now, of course, she's touting the Biden administration's executive order to crack down on the border. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. Andrew, that's pretty incredible on its own when you're talking about what you found here on ICE. What else did you find?
Yeah, and this was a questionnaire that she filled out for the ACLU, and this questionnaire is really an interesting snapshot in time of that 2019 Democratic primary. Kamala Harris was trying to get to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was trying to get to the left of Elizabeth Warren, and you really see that in a lot of these answers, and I want to walk our viewers through a little bit of what she said. Let's just take immigration and look at what she said here. She said on immigration, she made this open-ended pledge to end immigrant detention. She said she supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She also said she supported
taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants.
She
actually said she supported that.
She both wrote and answered in the affirmative when she was asked this. Oh. And she said she also supported it for federal prisoners. Now, she also pledged to slash immigration detention by 50%, close all family and private facilities, and decrease funding for ICE, and then the end ICE detainers with local law enforcement.
I mean, these are things that, it would be hard to think that you would come up with taxpayer funding gender transitions for detained migrants. And yet this, as you say, written and verbally.
All right, I guess it kills me to some extent, but I'll give credit where credit is due. Like, they did a little bit of something you might roughly call journalism there. They always bring in, I don't know why, it's all these asexual soy boys that they bring in. Can we throw that image up again, though, of the bullet points there? Because let's just go through these real quick. Pledge to end immigration detention. So do any of you watching this right now think that we need less people that are coming here illegally to be detained? Do you want more of them on the streets? But that's what she was for. And then the question really bears with all of these, which is her real belief? Is it what she believed in 2019, or is she doing what's politically expedient right now? I think you know the answer to that. Let's throw back there. Second, taxpayer-funded gender care and transition surgeries for detained migrants. So a man comes across illegally, gets here, and is like, I want to be a woman, and we're going to pay them for that. Like, it's so absolutely bananas. Like, that's not even, like, if we were to just take, like, if you took, like, what's sort of, like, mainstream acceptable thought, and then you can kind of, like, edge your way out either way and be like, all right, well, we could deal with some of this stuff on the left that's a little nutty and some of this stuff on the right that's a little nutty. Like, paying for trans surgeries for people who got here illegally is like, I'm off the screen, right? Like, we're just I'm literally, the bathroom's over there. That's where we're at right there. Okay, let's go next. Slash immigrant detention by 50%, close all family and private facilities. Close private facilities. Why would you stop private people from being able to help in this situation? Decrease funding for ICE, which they got into, end ICE detainers. And also, they didn't mention it in there, but the big one that I've referenced a couple times is that moment in the debate a couple of years back when she was running against Biden, and they asked, how many of you want to ban private insurance so you would not be able to just pay a private company to be insured for your health? Like, it's psychotic, except it's perfect Democrat policy because it's all about giving more power to the government and it's just about destroying the country. There's no other way to say it. Like, if you just want a gajillion people to come in here and you want to chop off their dicks and give them money and have them run around like lunatics, smoking meth and doing all the rest of the stuff, then you're a Democrat. I hope she gets up there and says that tonight. But it's not just her opinion. You know, these radical policies that we've seen over the last 4 years with Biden, and Biden was never really the president. He was never really running any of this. We all know it now. For some reason, I was saying it for years, and it's only in the last 3 months that people have caught up to it. But it's not just her opinion about all of these things, it's the way they've run this government, right? Because they do give trans surgeries to criminals. And they do let a zillion people in here and they want to give money, $150,000 to illegals to get houses here because Nancy Pelosi wants everyone to share in the American dream, even though it's supposed to be only for American people. But it should all be pinned. All the disasters of the last couple of years should be pinned on her. But don't take my word for it. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre saying that Kamala has had her hand in everything.
The coalescing of support behind the vice president, which is not surprising. She has been a partner, a critical partner to this president in everything that we have been able to successfully get done.
Okay, so I don't know what they've successfully been able to get done. The stock market is doing okay. I will give them that for whatever worth that has, right? For whatever connection their policy has to do with that. The stock market is doing okay. That's probably more because of the Federal Reserve than because of them. But putting that aside for a moment, do you think the border is good? Do you think the fentanyl situation is good? Do you think the price of foods are good? Do you think what's going on in the Middle East is good? Do you think what's happening with Russia, Ukraine is good? Like, we can go through all of the things. So truly, for me to try to be as objective as possible, if I was on the other side of this, what would I be saying is really great right now, right? I'm not saying we're just right on the precipice of just like all killing each other tomorrow. But what really is good right now? Are our kids being taught the right things? Are they getting a true history of our nation? Does she have a vision that's going to get us out of this mess? Like, I don't think so. So we'll talk a little bit about the strategy for tonight because, you know, there's a couple things here tonight. I would say there's sort of 3 points to all this. You have the personalities, right? So you have the personality of Donald Trump. Virtually everyone's made an opinion on that. You have the personality of Kamala Harris, is what it is, with a Venn diagram wrapped around it. You have the policies, and then you have the narrative. So those are the 3 things we're going to have to all go through tonight and see what happens after the debate. Let's talk about armor for a second, and then we'll get to that. Guys, you've all heard about armor colostrum by now. It's been the best kept secret of industry insiders for a while, but word's finally getting out, and for good reason. Armor colostrum is everywhere these days, and when I first heard about it, I thought it was almost too good to be true. Thousands and thousands of people reporting absolutely transformational health benefits, tens of thousands of 5-star reviews, and life-changing stories. Well, I can confirm this stuff delivers. Armor optimizes your whole body and microbiome and strengthens your immune barriers along the mouth, sinuses, lungs, gut, urinary, and reproductive tract to guard against unwelcome particles for your strongest immune health. You can get a hold of this amazing stuff right now. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 15% off your first order. Go to tryarmra.com/Rubin or enter Rubin to get 15% off your first order. That's tryarmra.com/Rubin. And now back to me. Okay, so what do they have to do? Well, one of the 3 prongs that I just mentioned, personality, policy, and narrative. One of them is narrative, right? So the narrative has to be set before and after the debate. So here's John Fetterman. And John Fetterman, it's been an interesting year for him because I would describe him as the closest thing the Democrats have at this point to like a sane person on their side. But he does have some degree of brain damage still. And he's still a Democrat. And here he is just going into some of his old Democrat stuff. Listen to how he's trying to frame this debate tonight.
It's about the choice. It's not about the money or it's about policies or those kinds of obscure things. It's about the choice and what kind of a direction do we want our nation to go in. And after all those things.
It's not about policy or those obscure things. It's so interesting because policy is the least obscure thing that there is. Policy is something that's written on a paper that then if you have competent people around you, you can execute that policy. I think we all wish, most of us at least, wish we lived in a country, in a world where you had someone who honestly could lay out their policy and execute that policy, and you can decide if you like that person or not. That would be the least obscure. That would be the most transparent way about going about governance. But he doesn't want you to think that it is about policy because the Democrat policies are not liked. What he wants you to think, it is the choice. It is the choice between an orange criminal insurrectionist some lady who laughs a lot. That's what they want you to think. They don't want you to look down at policy. They want you to, in some ways, they want you to think you're an idiot for looking at policy. They want you to be at the table with someone. I really mean this. They want you to be at the table over the next couple of weeks with your family, and then you say, well, you know, Donald Trump was better at the border, and now it seems like the Democrats are kind of coming around on that. And they want you to go, it's not about policy. Donald Trump's evil. Kamala Harris is going to save us. That is what that's all they can kind of hang their hat on. Now, of course, the problem that they're going to have with that, I think, is that Kamala Harris is not very authentic. So not only do they not have the policy, but I don't think she fakes it very well. And here's a compilation that will prove my point, I'd say perfectly.
Oh, come here. What is that about? What is that about? I think you understand. I'm pretty sure you know. Oh, it's going to be good. We're going to be good. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
We're breaking the compilation just so I can get in there. Like, if you're crying hysterically to have that, and it's all just so staged, the woman's crying over there and the camera's on her and she runs over and hugs her. And it's like, that woman needs more help than Kamala Harris can offer up. But Kamala Harris also loves music, and she just impromptu goes into music shops and tells people what she likes.
What'd you get? So, okay, so do you know music? Okay, so first of all, Charlie Mingus, really one of the greatest jazz performers ever. One of my favorite albums of all time. Roy Ayers, Everybody Loves Sunshine.
Do you know music? Like, and you just know, like, I like jazz, right? Like, and I probably have a way better jazz collection than her. You just know she doesn't even have a record player. They had to focus group what she was going to walk out of there and say it had to be a black musician. Like, you just know how it all operates. We must have one more of this sort of thing, don't we?
I feel that the future is bright and that we will have a new president who will be elected, and she will lead the nation with integrity and with a sense of fairness and justice, and she will be me.
Okay, I literally don't know what that one is or where it came from or anything else, but we had it in the rundown this morning, and I thought, you know what, I'm not even going to do the research for that one. Like, what the hell? Let's just play it again. There she is rubbing a giant crystal ball talking about herself, and that clearly is in the last couple weeks because she's saying how she's going to be president. I don't know where it came from, what context this is. It just doesn't matter. Good luck with all of that.
I feel that the future is bright and that we will have a new president who will be elected, and she will lead the nation with integrity and with a sense of fairness and justice, and she will be me.
Flop bucket next to me to barf into. All right, so look, I don't know what that is, but we can sort of see what they have. They have a woman who is the winner of the coup, because there was a coup against Joe Biden. They've installed her. It's clear that not a lot of people like her. It's clear that people don't seem to like the policies. It's clear that she's very deeply inauthentic. So what kind of, what wild card could they have? What do they have kind of right here in the jacket pocket that they could whip out Could it be that Donald Trump is a very bad person? And on night 2 of the DNC, of the Democratic Convention, which I was off the grid for, that they actually said Donald Trump's name more than anything else? Yeah, it's that.
Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump,
Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump,
Donald Trump, Donald Trump,
Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump,
Donald Trump.
So did you read the chyron there? They mentioned Donald Trump's name on night 2 of the Democrat convention more than all of the other issues combined. So what they need to do is make everyone fearful. He's going to destroy democracy. He's the fascist, even though that's how they act. Like, that is what they've got to do. We have more evidence of that. Joy Reid over on the televised mental institution had a woman that I genuinely, we've played you that abortion clip where Elizabeth Warren just loves abortion so much and she wants pregnant people to kill as many babies as possible. Like, she's a true, like, nasty, nasty woman. But here they are, Joy Reid and Liz Warren, fear-mongering about Trump.
I mean, if all you need is to root out more and more white voters, you might do that sort of thing. And you might drone on about migrant crime that isn't actually an epidemic. And you might push to ban books about black and queer folks, all to keep that one vote you need on your side, while picking off some minority voters who might be open to a campaign message that's anti-immigrant, anti-woman, and pro-billionaire as well. And that strategy appears to be working. Despite how exhausting and deadly the Trump era was and how it devastated our lives, our psyches, our families, our economy, tens of millions of Americans, our fellow Americans, want to go back to that era. They do not want to move on. They want to go back. It makes no sense to me, and probably not to you either, but that is reality.
This one isn't about the past. It's about egging people on for the future. And I think he's telling us once again exactly what his designs are for democracy, and that is give him the chance, and Donald Trump will truly destroy our democracy.
Again, mirror, fear-mongering, you get all the usual stuff. Just quickly to go through what you said. So, of course, it's that he's got to gin up the white voters. You know, it's funny. I play basketball every Wednesday and Sunday, and out of the 25 guys that I play with, I'm probably one of about 4 white guys. I'm here in Miami. It's largely Cubans and Venezuelans and a bunch of other people I don't even know because I don't really think about that, and you certainly don't think about it when you're playing sports. They're all Trump supporters. There's one guy who's not. He's a Canadian. Chris, if you're watching, I still like you, but like, let's get there already, man. But you get the point, guys. They want this to seem like white people are taking over, so white supremacy will reign. Then, of course, she talks about the overblown issue about migrant crime. It's like, tell the lady who the neighbor ate her pussy yesterday, tell her about that if that thing was overblown. Too much. Then something about banning black and queer books. It's just not true. The question is, do you want sexual books in 3rd grade? For some reason, Democrats do, right? You wouldn't put Mein Kampf in a 2nd grade class. So we are allowed to have some discerning ability when it comes to what children are reading. And then she says, and they're pro-billionaire. And it's like, well, I don't have any problem with billionaires. Billionaires build things. Like, you want to take out all the billionaires? Billionaires build businesses. I know you want to destroy billionaires, right? You want to create a situation where unrealized gains will be taxed, so they will not be willing to put money into new projects because they want to destroy everything. And then, and it was also exhausting for people's families, and it was so terrible in the economy. It's like, lady, we had the pre-COVID, we had the best economy we had in decades, with lowest all-time black unemployment and Latino unemployment and everything. But you get it. They want power. Now, I love this video. We weren't going to put this in, and then I saw it right before the show, and I said, we got to put it in. So Gavin Newsom, and you know he is a snake. He is an evil human being, and he wanted to be president so badly, and that's why he showed up to that last debate. And it's everything about him reeks of just evil power mongering, and everything he touches, he destroys when it comes to San Francisco and California, not his own personal riches or his winery, which he kept open during COVID and all of that stuff. You get that. But he wanted it so freaking bad, right? And now he didn't get it, and yet all he's left with is being the bitch to the people who slapped him. So here he is going on CBS News and just going off on Trump. And it's like, dude, you're never going to get what you want no matter what you do. And just look at it, just so inauthentic, slimy. Do people have a general sense of my feelings towards him at this point? I think you're there. All right, go.
Momentum is with us. She's the change candidate. There's a fresh air related to her. There's a stale air of normalcy related to Donald Trump. He's about the past. She's about the future. He's about chaos. We're about competency. It's about daylight and darkness. This is the easiest election in my lifetime. I love where we are. In this case, to make the case anew against a guy who's more unhinged, more deranged than he ever has been. He's more derivative, and I mean this. I'm a student of Donald Trump. We all are. We've had to live with him. He's less interesting. I mean, listen to these rambling speeches for hours and hours. His audience is even losing him. People are walking out. He's literally, listen to what he's actually saying and how he's saying it.
Again, mirror, and it's just, dude, you're just the bitch of the Democrat Party right now. Like, it's so great, the ending of his story, which it's not fully ended yet, but like, and just nothing he says. She's the new heir. It's nothing, it's drivel. I hate you, goodbye. So what is their strategy? Because she's a pretty terrible debater and we have a lot of evidence of that. We'll talk about that on the other side. Let me tell you about Freedom Chat. Guys, let me ask you a question. How many of you are concerned that your privacy is being attacked by the radical left? The deep state is invading individuals' private messages and targeting them based on political affiliation. That's why I've partnered with Freedom Chat, a private social messaging app that, like me, believes that privacy is a fundamental human right. Freedom Chat offers true end-to-end encryption, built-in screenshot protection to ensure that no one can screenshot your conversations, no storage of messages on their servers, and no commercial use of their data. This is the app I trust, and it's the app my family and I rely on, especially as we approach the election. Some people will stop at nothing to maintain power, making privacy protection more important than ever. Download the app right now by going to freedomchat.com/Rubin. No one can see the channels you are subscribed to or the posts you react to. It's your own private news feed. Speak freely and message privately with Freedom Chat. Again, download the app at freedomchat.com/Rubin. And now back to me. Okay, so let's go back now. So what did I mention? There are sort of three prongs here. You have the personalities, right? You have the policies, and then you have the narrative. Well, another part of this is how they debate. This would be connected really to the personalities themselves. Like what is their skill set? Well, let's go back to 2020 during the Democrat primary when Tulsi Gabbard, this is an oldie but a goodie, just absolutely demolished Kamala Harris. And remember, then Joe Biden, and obviously he wasn't in charge of his own faculties even then, he looked at this clip and said, okay, we're going to just basically push Tulsi out of the party, but we're going to keep Kamala. But this was one of many moments where she got mangled, but this is probably the best.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. That would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way. The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Senator Harris.
Yeah, and she had nothing. And, you know, I know you've likely seen that clip before, but even watching it now, post Tulsi not only leaving, I mean, in essence, being kicked out of the Democrat Party, now helping Trump on the campaign, it just shows you everything you need to know. Like, which one of those two people is someone who you think would be a more thoughtful, interesting leader? It's so obviously Tulsi that it's basically ridiculous. Kamala Harris, putting aside the death row thing, Kamala Harris, we've shown you the clips before, has all of these interviews when people ask her if she's ever smoked pot and where she's laughing hysterically, but she was the one jailing people for smoking pot. It doesn't even matter whether you think marijuana should be legal or illegal or anything else. She has a certain set of rules for her and her friends, and a different set of rules for people that can't afford, the right legal team to get them out of a jam. So she's not a particularly good debater, and she's also kind of entitled. Do you remember there was this moment? This is a quick one. There was this moment when she was doing the VP debate against Mike Pence, and you can see what she's going to try to do. I think she will try to do this repeatedly tonight. There's an angle here of "Don't interrupt me, I'm a woman." Watch this.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well, wait.
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth.
Look, that's a quick bite, right? There's a lot of versions of that thing, but I think you're going to see a lot of that tonight. And it's interesting, Mike Pence, not a great debater, not a great public speaker. His campaign went nowhere this time. He's just, as he said, well, I'm trying to tell you the truth, but I'm speaking with that inauthentic smile. She also, just in the last couple of days, she is not well versed in a lot of this stuff. It's hard when you're playing catch up with lies all the time. So if you change all of your policies just to get elected, which is exactly what Bernie is now saying Kamala is doing. So you had a certain set of beliefs in 19, they're way too radical to get you elected. So now you're lying about all of your policies, right? That's what she's in the process of doing. Bernie Sanders literally, I guess, accidentally said the truth on CNN yesterday. The other part is she has to play catch up. So she has to look at a lot of notes. I always tell you guys, the way I do this show is I've got a teleprompter in front of me. It's just showing me the order of what I'm doing. And then everything that comes out of my mouth, for better or worse, is what I think. But she went on a radio interview with Univision a couple days ago, and you can literally hear her thumbing through the pages of notes as she's answering the questions.
This time to address Hispanic Americans who may be on the fence about which way to vote on November 5th.
Listen, I think that it's time to move forward and to chart a new way forward. And we need to turn the page on this Trump era, this person who has talked about.
You may think that that's nothing, like that may feel like a little bit nothing, or she flipped through something, but then all she does is just give you standard talking points. There's nothing authentic there. There's nothing real there. I mean, she needs notes in front of her to tell you we have to move past Donald Trump. So, of course, what's the other thing that they tried to do before the debate tonight? This is a tweet from OAN Report. ABC News rejects Harris's last-minute request change to the Trump debate. And the three things that she wanted to change. She wanted them to have notes. I think we played a clip yesterday of Donald Trump talking about why you shouldn't have to have notes when you're up there. As I said yesterday, I don't think you should even have a moderator. I think you could literally put the two of them on say a 15-foot wide stage by maybe 5 feet that way. I would have no notes. I would have no podium, no nothing. And I would just have them talk for an hour and a half, right? Sorry, Phoenix, can you go back? What were the three things? So it was notes, that she also wanted a desk, right? Because it makes it feel a little more controlled. It's also easier to look down if you have a desk right in front of you. And she wanted unmuted mics. So there is all sorts of reasons now to think, so that she can do things like I'm speaking, right? Like that's the point. That is the point. But now I want to compare that sort of controlled NPC person who needs notes, who doesn't know really what they think, who's just lying to, again, as Bernie said, she's lying to get voted, to get the votes to become president. Let's put that in contrast with someone else who has had his own awakening during these last 6 months, and I'm talking about RFK Jr. Here he is doing a podcast interview where he talks about the reasons why having an unscripted interview or conversation is actually incredibly important if you want to lead the freaking country.
Look, I do probably on average about 7 interviews a day, and I do them, they're not, they're with unfriendly reporters. They're not scripted. I don't know what's going to say, what people are going to ask me. I welcome any kind of questions. President Trump does the same thing.
Yeah.
And, you want a leader that can articulate a vision for this country, that can articulate it for us, for the American people, that can inspire us with that vision, that can defend our country and our interests to foreign leaders. Somebody who is articulate, who's committed to something. And then you can disagree with what they say, but you can disagree with Trump. And you can find all kinds of errors and horrors in the things he says, but at least he's going out there and he has confidence and he has a vision.
Yeah.
And to elect somebody who is and I don't want to be harsh towards her because I don't want to feed into the vitriol, but I find it astonishing that you would have somebody who's been in public life their entire life and they do not have the confidence, or their handlers don't have the confidence to put them in front of a camera with an unscripted event. That to me is shocking. And I think the rest of the world is looking at this and saying, what is happened to America?
Well, yeah, it all just feels like a show. I mean, did you see where
it feels like a show?
Exactly.
It feels like somebody else is managing it.
Exactly. Like it's a producer, say this, do that.
Look how hard RFK is trying not to bash her. He really is trying. I don't want to add to the vitriol. He's giving the most base explanation of her. Would you want, if in meetings with Putin or whoever it might be, would you want someone who you don't really know what they think, who needs notes all the time? I mean, we've seen 4 years of Joe Biden having notes to literally give you the title of who he was talking to right next to him in all caps and things of that nature. But we don't really know what she thinks. Do you think she truly has a vision? He even says, what's the line? He says, for all the horrors and I think he says, for all the errors and horrors that related to the things Donald Trump might say. And yet he's voting for Trump and he's supporting Trump and he wants Trump to be president because Trump, for all of the verbal gaffes and the exaggerations or whatever you might think of him, the vision of what this country is supposed to be is much more in line with something that certainly I believe in, I think probably you and hopefully more Americans believe in. Now I want to jump over to something else because, one of the things that I missed when I was off the grid was apparently Kamala gave her first long-form interview. She's done no press conferences. She's had very controlled interviews, nothing live. She does these nonsensical little media hits where she walks out of a record store and says, I bought this jazz record, but no one's asking her anything in an unfettered way. Well, apparently CNN's Dana Bash, I do not like this woman, and I'll have more on her in a couple of weeks, but she interviewed Kamala Harris for apparently, 41 minutes, and they only released 23 minutes of it, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a missing roughly 18 minutes of this interview. But anyway, then Dana went on a podcast to talk about how bad Kamala Harris and her sidekick were in that interview.
Did you get a sense that they were ready for these kinds of questions? And, this is, obviously Kamala Harris is going to have a debate next week with Trump. I feel like she's going to need to have better answers going forward if she has any chance of success.
I think you just said, I tried.
Right.
I mean, you can't force somebody to answer a question. And I asked a follow-up. I tried to get more into the nitty-gritty and get the answer. And sometimes, my experience in doing interviews is that once you ask once, fine, twice, fine, 3 times, if you don't get it as a clear answer, that's kind of your answer.
Dana, let me tell you a little something about my history of doing interviews. When I do interviews, I don't edit them. So you allowed them to edit out 18 minutes of your interview. Why did you agree to that? Did you give them the questions beforehand? What other agreements did you have to get them to do the sit down in the first place? How about you talk about all of that? Or are you not a particularly good interviewer? You're actually just a piece of a cog in a machine. Now, it's nice to hear you say right there what cannot be denied, which is that they didn't answer any of the questions honestly. So I'll give you a little something on that. But why is it that I don't have secret agreements with the people that I interview? Why is it that if someone gives an answer I don't like, say 18 minutes worth of an answer I don't like, I don't cut that out of the interview? Or is it that you're a Democrat journalist? We'll look into that. Anyway, here's a little more from the mainstream media on Kamala Harris's preparation for the big night.
She has closely studied the former president's past 6 debate performances. She's also been sort of entrenched in these briefing papers going over the former president's past comments, as well as the ways that he has insulted her, so she can be prepared to respond to that. She's engaged in these mock debates with a stand-in for the former president, and she's had conversations with Hillary Clinton and President Biden, who both extensively have knowledge of debating the former president.
We know that Vice President Kamala Harris, she is in her hotel in Pittsburgh. They've got the lights as if it's in a studio. They've got the stage. They've even brought in somebody who's dressed and acting like the former president. And then we know that the former president himself is just having sort of informal policy discussions from what we understand in preparation for Tuesday.
Well, look, all jokes aside, we are taking this extremely seriously. Donald Trump is a skilled debater. He has been in the most presidential debates of any candidate in presidential history. This will be the vice president's first presidential debate as the nominee.
There's something about that compilation about these cable news people, like how do they all talk like this? And she'll be preparing in her hotel room with a man who looks like Donald Trump. They're just robots reading a script. Do you see it? Do you see it? But they do need what they need, and the representative in that last clip there is laying it out. They need to lower the expectations for her, right? Because they know she's not great. So they want to frame any sort of little victory she gets in there, like a little moment, that has to be a huge win for her. Now, okay, so let's stop talking about her for a moment and let's talk about Donald Trump. Now, look, almost everybody has their feelings about Donald Trump already. So for the people that absolutely love Trump, there's nothing he could do tonight that will get them to walk away, right? And for the people that have full-on Trump derangement syndrome, there is nothing he can do to get over that. However, for that, whatever many people are still somewhere undecided, and they do exist, they absolutely do exist. What is it that Donald Trump can do to win them over? Well, I think one thing he can do is focus on policy and not focus on the name calling and everything else. And we have evidence he will do that. How do we have evidence of that? Well, during the debate with Joe Biden, I think he was the most measured and controlled he has ever been. Now, get it, Joe Biden was weak and pathetic and ready to crumble, but Trump let it happen. You remember this?
They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24% or 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country.
That's the right tone. Even there, when he dinged him a little bit, I'm not saying you can't ding her, but let her, look, her ridiculousness is going to be very, very different. And she was an attorney general and a lawyer, so she'll have a better skill set rather than a man with clear cognitive problems. But Trump just controlled and calm, and even the way, you know, he does this thing with his voice sometimes where sometimes he sounds very gruff and sometimes he sounds a little more demure. I think going in with that optically will be really, really good. And again, I'm not saying you're going to suddenly bring around the true haters or anything else, but for whoever is left, if you just show them you're ready this time around, you're ready to calm some of their fears and be as presidential and professional as possible, that is your chance. And I just will add one other thing on this before I move on, which is that during that debate, Donald Trump gave the single best answer on abortion I have ever heard him give. And that's going to be a big one tonight. Because one of the things they have to do is they have to keep largely middle-class women thinking that Donald Trump is coming for women's rights and the rest of it, even though they don't know what a woman is, right? And they're going to hit him on abortion over and over, and then the media will lie. He has repeatedly said he doesn't want a national ban. That was the whole point of reversing Roe v. Wade in the first place, right? To get it out of the federal government and into the states. But she's going to go after him and lie and lie and lie. And if he just calmly says what his actual position is, which is that it should be to the states and there shouldn't be a national ban. And as he said last time, I don't know if that helps me electorally. What kind of presidential candidate says that? Donald Trump does, and that is the freaking truth. So that is his move. But okay, so that's one strategy point that I think he should encompass tonight. I think probably most of you agree with that. But what's the next thing? What he also has to show is that good people will be around him, right? And that was one of my main concerns when I was supporting DeSantis first time around. And I think I'm thrilled to see that largely has disappeared because so many interesting people like Elon Musk are now in the Trump orbit and willing to help his administration. Here's RFK talking about that Trump knows he made some mistakes the first time around, but has learned from them.
The power is so insurmountable. How do we then pass a law that doesn't let that continue on? Like, how do you make it stop?
I think you need a president who's willing to go in there and who is not part of that system. And I think that's President Trump. And President Trump, I think, tried to do that the last time to drain the swamp. And he was well-intentioned, but he didn't know how to do it. And he said that to me. He said, I didn't know anything about governing. And he said, we won this election, and then all of a sudden you got to fill 60,000 jobs or something like that. And he said, I was surrounded by people, by lobbyists and business interests who were saying, you got to appoint this guy, you got to appoint that guy, and that's what he did. He told me, I don't want to do that again. He said those were bad guys, and this time we're going to do something different. And he wants to leave a legacy. He's not going to run again. He's a lame duck president. And he wants to do something that's good for this country. I know how to do that, and he's asked me to help him do that. So if we do that, if he does what he says, I'm very optimistic that we can actually remedy a lot of this corruption.
Isn't it nice to hear some of that stuff? And RFK, I know he's got this voice issue, but hearing him speak about this stuff, it's real and it's true. And I believe him when he says that that's what he discussed with Trump, that Trump doesn't want to make those mistakes again, and it's acknowledging that. So a little humility by Trump will be good. And then Trump bringing in the right people. So imagine Elon Musk helping you staff, right? And imagine RFK helping you work on the agencies. And whoever else now in this wide tent thing might come in and want to help be part of restoring America. It really would be something else. And then I think there's one chance. I would say this is sort of a 10% chance that this one happens. That Donald Trump really knocks it out of the park tonight. That he's really ready. He feels the momentum. He does some of the things that I've mentioned here. And that Kamala, because it's so inauthentic, because it's so fake, there is some chance that he delivers some kind of blow to Kamala that even the media will have to acknowledge it. And they try not to, right? They really, really try not to. But just remember what happened during that last debate. He crushed Biden, or Biden crushed himself to the point, and he let Biden do it, to the point that immediately after, everyone in the mainstream media was basically saying what I and probably you have been saying for years. Remember this, right after the debate.
And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now. We're still far from our convention, and there is time for this party to figure out a different way forward if he will allow us to do that. But that was not what we needed from Joe Biden, and it's personally painful.
And they're having conversations about the president's performance, which they think was dismal, which they think will hurt other people down the party in the ticket, and they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Other of the conversations are about, should prominent Democrats go public with that call? Because they feel this debate was so terrible.
So remember, guys, those people, Van Jones, John King, the rest of them, those people who lied to everybody for years about Biden's cognitive state, it became so obvious that night that the lie caught up with TV. And then suddenly the narrative completely changed. And what was it? It was basically, 3 weeks later that they did their coup and they got rid of Joe Biden. And Kamala was clearly part of that with Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and everything else. So Trump has a chance. I think this is a small chance, but he might be able, through controlling himself, through focusing properly, through allowing her to cackle and just imply that he's a white supremacist and the rest of it, maybe there's a way that you get some version of that. But mostly just a controlled Donald Trump focusing on policy and what he will do and talking about, and I'm bringing in Democrats like RFK Jr. and Tulsi. Like, that is the way you win this thing. All of that being said, we will be live immediately after the debate right here. We will be doing a live chat with you guys over on Locals, and you can join us for a post-game show right now, rubinreport.locals.com. See you tonight.
For the final part of the debate, we asked each of the two candidates to choose a song that best describes the opposing candidate. We will now play the song President Trump picked, that he thinks best describes Vice President Kamala Harris.